From today, we are starting to discuss Shurangama Sutra. Everyone, please palms together. Homage to our fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Homage to our fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Homage to our fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, so please put your palms down. We always hear this saying in Buddhism: the Shurangama Sutra leads to awakening, while the Lotus Sutra leads to the attainment of Buddhahood. Venerable Master said, anyone who studies Buddha Dharma should first understand the Shurangama Sutra, as it can grow one's wisdom. Therefore, if you wish to develop right view, right knowledge, and great wisdom, then you must master the Shurangama Sutra. An Indian monk who visited China during the Sui dynasty once told the founder of Tiantai School, Master Zhizhe, the principle of contemplation on stillness that you taught in Tianan's Tiantai School is consistent with that of the Shurangama Sutra. After the Indian monk had left, Master Zhizhe set up a platform on Mount Tiantai, sincerely bowing in the direction of India and praying that the Shurangama Sutra would soon reach China. The master prayed for 18 years, but unfortunately, until his passing, he never lived to see the Shurangama Sutra arriving in China. Years later, when Dharma Master Pramita, a monk from India, heard about Master Zhizhe bowing and requesting the Shurangama Sutra for 18 years, he was deeply moved by the master's sincerity and decided to bring the sutra to China himself. However, the Shurangama Sutra was considered a national treasure in India at that time and could not be taken out of the country. So when the monk carried it through the border, it was confiscated by the customs officer. Next, the monk decided to memorize the entire sutra so it couldn't be seized. Having committed it to memory, he set out again, but when he reached the border after a long, tiring journey, he realized that he had forgotten parts of the sutra out of fatigue, so he had no choice but to turn back. After 2 futile attempts, Dharma Master Pramiti was even more determined to propagate the Dharma to China than ever. This time, he copied the sutra in the smallest handwriting possible on a piece of the finest silk and sealed the scroll in wax. Next, he cut open his arms to hide the sutra in his flesh. He then covered his wounds with herbs and waited until they had fully healed before crossing the border again. Third time's a charm, and he successfully smuggled the sutra to China on his third try. When Dharma Master Pamiti reached Guangzhou, ex-Prime Minister Fang Rou was coincidentally on exile to Guangzhou, so he invited Pamiti to stay at the Zhizhi temple. There, the master cut his flesh to retrieve the sutra. Unfortunately, due to the passage of time, flesh and blood had rendered the sutra illegible. During that moment of despair, a mute girl suddenly spoke out, suggesting that they wash the cloth in human milk to reveal the writing on it. They tried her method, and sure enough, they could make out the words in the sutra. As soon as the translation of the Shurangama Sutra was completed, Dharma Master Pramiti hurried back to India to turn himself in and relieve the border guards of any punitive consequences. The Shurangama Sutra is representative of Buddhist cultivators' selfless devotion to propagating the Dharma. Since the Chinese text was meticulously polished by Prime Minister Fang Rou, who was the most learned scholar at that time, the elegance and beauty of their translation was unparalleled in China's Buddhism. Venerable Master Hua said, anyone who wishes to learn Chinese should study the Shurangama Sutra and memorize it. It will take your Chinese proficiency to the highest level. Confucian scholars of the Ming Dynasty praised it highly, saying, having read the Shurangama Sutra, I no longer want to read any substandard literature in the world. So the Buddha spoke the Shurangama Sutra for the sake of the Shurangama mantra. Why was that? At the beginning of the sutra, the Buddha's cousin, Venerable Ananda, who was foremost in learning, had become very complacent of his vast knowledge and his status as the Buddha's cousin. Thinking that he could easily attain enlightenment with the Buddha's help, he didn't bother to put much effort in his cultivation. As we know, Ananda was the most outgoing among the Buddha's disciples. One day he traveled alone to accept an invitation of offerings and was on his way back when he ran into Maiden Matanga. Matanga had been his wife for the past 500 lifetimes and was immediately infatuated with Ananda as soon as she saw him. She said to her mother, "I must marry Ananda, otherwise I won't live." Hearing that, her mother cast a Kapila spell on Ananda, making him involuntarily walk into their home. Ananda was calling for help in his mind. Why hasn't the Buddha come to my rescue yet? At that critical moment when he was about to break his precepts, the Buddha sent Manjushri Bodhisattva to rescue Ananda using the Shurangama mantra. Manjushri broke the spell with the mantra and brought Ananda back unharmed. Upon seeing the Buddha, Ananda burst into tears, saying, "I always pride myself on my learning, but now I know actually I have no samadhi at all. Please teach me the way to attain the great Shurangama Samadhi." Upon this request, the Buddha started speaking the Shurangama Sutra. Now, ever since the Shurangama Sutra was translated to Chinese in the Tang Dynasty by Dharma Master Pramiti, it had been regarded highly among practitioners from the Avatamsaka school, Tiantai, Han, and even the Confucian schools. Notably, it quickly gained importance and popularity in China after four eminent monks of the late Ming Dynasty promoted it to the public. For instance, Master Han Shan composed simple explanation of the Shurangama. Master O-Yi composed analysis of the Shurangama Sutra, and Master Lian Shi authored intro to the Shurangama. The most authoritative commentary to date, however, is the insightful commentary of the Shurangama Sutra. It was highly praised by Master Han Shan, Master Lian Shi, and Venerable Master Hua himself. Master Empty Cloud, Xu Yun, annotated only one sutra throughout his entire life, and that was the Shurangama Sutra. Historically, more than 100 commentaries have been written on the Shurangama Sutra, but only more than 40 still exist today. From this, we know the modern scholars' claims of the Shurangama Sutra as fake are unfounded. How could it be fake when it has been endorsed by so many eminent masters? Now, Master O-Yi of the Ming Dynasty wrote in essence of the Tripitaka. This sutra is the compass of the Buddha's teachings, the essence of nature, the crux of the Dharma doors of the generation, and the certification of Buddhahood and patriarchship. The master said, the Shurangama Sutra is a guide for meditation and understanding the teachings. This semester, we are blessed to convene here and study the Shurangama Sutra together in a series of 7 classes. In addition to today's class on the sutra's prologue, we will be covering the following topics in the next few weeks: 7 quests for the true mind, 3 perpetuations, Guanyin Bodhisattva's Dharma door, wondrous application of the Shurangama Sutra, 3 gradual phases in cultivation, and the 7 destinies. The Shurangama Sutra consists of 10 volumes. Having closely escaped Matanga's seduction, Ananda deeply regretted his mistake and asked the Buddha for instructions on cultivating samadhi. The Buddha, however, did not respond to his request by telling him, "Close your eyes, sit in full lotus, and meditate." Instead, the Buddha taught him to differentiate between the true and false mind. Why? That's because the purpose of meditation and investigating dhyana is to gather in the mind, and the purpose of gathering in the mind is to solve the matter of birth and death. Sentient beings continue to undergo birth and death without end because they have mistaken the sixth consciousness as their true mind and ended up transmigrating in the six destinies for countless eons. The section Seven Quests for the True Mind teaches us how to recognize delusion. When we see through delusion, ultimate truth will emerge naturally. Hence, next section, 10 demonstrations of the teaching shows us that the true mind is unmoving, never lost, and so forth. Next question, do we cultivate the true mind apart from the false mind and delusional body? No, we don't. We apply effort on the daily 5 skandhas of form, sense perception, cognition, mental formations, and consciousness, as well as the 6 sense faculties of eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, which are essentially the fundamental matrix of the Tathagatas, the nature of wonderful true suchness. Why so? We ordinary beings are inherently endowed with the Buddha's nature, but we are trapped in the 6 destinies by one thought of ignorance. Since the 5 skandhas originate from the Tathagata's matrix, we can cultivate using any Dharma method to return to the source. For the convenience of our short lifespan, Bodhisattva Manjushri recommended that we start from the ear faculty as our primary practice, as that is the easiest, and use the 4 clear instructions on purity, Shurangama Bodhimanda and Shurangama Sutra, as subsidiary practices. When we reach perfection in our cultivation, we will arrive at 55 stages of the Bodhisattvas. Toward the end of the sutra, the Buddha talked about the 7 different destinies, exhorting us to observe the precepts so we would not fall into the other 6 destinies. Finally, the Buddha described 5 demonic states in great detail so we would not be captured in the demonic net. Therefore, the Shurangama Sutra is the best structured sutra. So now let's explain the name of the sutra. Let us now analyze the sutra's title. As eminent scholars often said, if you could understand the title of a sutra, you would understand most of its contents. This sutra is titled Sutra on the Shurangama Mantra that is spoken from above the crown of the great Buddha's head and on the hidden basis of the Tathagata's myriad bodhisattva practices that lead to their verifications of ultimate truth, consisting of 20 Chinese characters in total. The essence lies in the words great, which refers to sentient beings' minds and all the phenomena within. The Dharma Lotus Sutra calls it the one ultimate truth of the one ultimate reality of the Dharma realm, and represents it as a great white ox cart. Great is not measured relatively to something small. In fact, it is so big that it extends beyond the universe. The great Buddha's head encompasses the entire Dharma realm. Ancient sages described it as inherent in all sentient beings and realized by all Buddhas. If you understand it, then you've attained the complete meaning. Venerable Master Hua said, what is the hidden cause? It is the cause that inspires you to practice, so you will realize the principle in the complete meaning. Next, Bodhisattva's myriad practices means to bring benefit to others on the causal ground and culminate in the foremost Shurangama on the effectual ground. The foremost Shurangama is translated as the ultimate and timeless truth of all phenomena. Therefore, when you reach this stage, you realize that ultimate and timeless truth which is also known as the one mind, crown of the great Buddha's head. So Master O.E. once told the story about the great Buddha summit that is inherent in all sentient beings without exception. A powerful wheel-turning sage king had a dream one night. In his dream, he became a tiny ant who had to work hard scavenging for food and living in constant fear of larger ants. He led a wretched life in his dream, but it was merely a dream because, as soon as he woke up, he would return to his original form of the mighty wheel-turning sage king. The same applies to us confused sentient beings. We just need to find a way to wake ourselves from our dreams. Now, at the beginning of the sutra, the Buddha said that we practitioners cannot realize Supreme Bodhi and even join the ranks of lesser vehicle, heretics, demons, and followers of the demon kings because we are confused about two fundamentals. We have been cultivating the wrong way, so our effort is as futile as making rice from cooking sand. What are these two fundamentals? One, the basis of beginningless life and death. Sentient beings continuously drift between birth and death because we cannot recognize the everlasting true mind and their clear, pure, inherent nature. Instead, we indulge in all kinds of deluded thoughts, and because of these false thoughts, we revolve in samsara. The cause of samsara is our sixth consciousness and grasping mind, which keep perceiving and discriminating things. You feel nervous as soon as you hear the term grasping mind. And when you learn that you cannot escape reincarnation without stopping it, you feel even more nervous. As a matter of fact, the grasping mind is nothing to fear about because you also have the second fundamental, which is the second fundamental is the original pure essence of Bodhi and Nirvana, which has no beginning. Can you recall what the Buddha said when he attained enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree? He said, all sentient beings are endowed with the Buddha's qualities, but they are unable to realize enlightenment due to their delusions and attachments. How did we lose our inherent Buddha nature? Of course, you'll answer, I don't know when I ask you. That's why it's called beginningless ignorance, meaning that sentient beings suddenly became muddled out of the blue many kalpas ago and thought to themselves, is my Buddha nature bright enough? Don't I have to cultivate wisdom to illuminate it? With that thought, they lost their radiance forever and fell into the six destinies. I have a question for everyone. Is the grasping mind and the Bodhi mind two things or one? In other words, is the true mind and the delusion mind two or one? Okay, so let's think about it. So previously, I mentioned that we sentient beings cannot attain supreme Bodhi because we cannot differentiate between two fundamentals, delusion and ultimate truth. For boundless kalpas, we have been mistaking the body, mind, and the mirrored things in the universe as real. Therefore, the Buddha used 7 quests for the true mind and 10 demonstrations of the teaching to help us distinguish delusion from truth. After we realized that delusion is empty and the true mind is inherent, the Buddha, out of concern that we might seek a different Buddha path, talked about the 5 skandhas, 6 faculties, 12 places, 18 realms, and 7 primary elements. The four theories of the Tathagata's matrix are analogous to the moon. For no reason, we apply pressure to the eyeball and see two moons. Another example is the moon's reflection on the water. Both images come from the moon itself. Since delusion and truth come from the same source, we can focus our cultivation on any of the five skandhas, 6 senses, 12 places, 18 realms, and 7 primary elements to attain liberation. Master Han Shan explained this right on, saying, sentient beings, delusional minds, which give rise to birth and death, are, in effect, the Tathagata's essence. In our confused state, we turn the wonderful application of the Buddha's spiritual powers into delusional thoughts, emotions, and afflictions. Our discriminating knowledge and the view turn the immaculate Dharma body into karmic consequences of birth and death and transform the pure, wondrous Buddha land into the 6 defilements. So, as we always hear people say, important points should be stressed 3 times. So I want to ask everyone again, is the true mind and the delusional mind 2 or 1? The answer is 1. So the 4th volume, Purna Maitreya Putra, asked a very important question on our behalf. He asked, can the Buddha regress to the state of ordinary sentient beings after he realized Buddhahood? So you can answer number 1, yes, if sentient beings who are inherently pure could fall, the Buddha could too. As we know, the Buddha nature of ordinary beings is the same as that of a Buddha. Since they have fallen into the realm of ordinary beings, the Buddha would fall too. Second is no, pure gold does not return to its crude, unrefined state. What do we think? So let's choose one. And everyone is very smart. That's correct. So the answer is no, right? Yes. So the answer is no. Once the Buddha attained liberation and realized Buddhahood, he will remain at that stage forever and will not fall to a lower realm, just like smelted gold cannot return to the ore. Master Hanshan continues, one thought of sudden awakening is analogous to a great crucible that can melt anything thrown into it, meaning that when we are completely awakened, our entire world becomes one with the Tathagata's essence. Any deluded thoughts that we have at this moment are nothing but wonderful applications of spiritual powers. The name changes, but the essential nature is the same. In other words, when delusions emerge, the ultimate truth is obscured. It's just like rubbing off thick soot on a mirror. When delusions are gone, the truth comes to light. At this point, Venerable Ananda's faith and understanding strengthened and his doubts were dispelled. Eminent cultivators categorize the state as samatha, faith, or stilling of the mind, which is also a state of true quiescence. This principle is referred to in the sutra titled as the hidden basis of the Tathagatas. So after bringing forth faith and understanding, the next step is to put them into practice. Ananda said to the Buddha, I've understood the wondrous true suchness which we all possess, but I still don't know how to cultivate it. I'm like a homeless traveler who was suddenly gifted a majestic mansion by the celestial king. Even though I own the mansion, I have no means to enter it. We sincerely hope that the Buddha will show us the door to this mansion. Now, I believe everyone understands why our 3-year lecture series are named Knocking on the Buddha's Door, Exploring the Mansion, and Exploring Riches of the Mansion, the Third Journey, respectively. So this is the reason why we named it as such. So previously at the samatha, faith stage, the Buddha told us to abide in the wondrous essence of true suchness. Now at the practice stage, we are instructed to rely on samadhi, which is often known as the practice of contemplation. This part corresponds with the sutra text verifications of ultimate truth. Do you recall the Buddha talking about two fundamentals at the beginning of the sutra? The first is the grasping mind, which is the basis of birth and death. The second is the original and pure essence of Bodhi and Nirvana. Before we embark on cultivation, the Buddha wanted us to first understand two definitive principles. What are they? First, when sentient beings make Bodhi resolve to walk the Bodhisattva path, their intention on the causal ground should be consistent with awakening on the effectual ground. For instance, if we plan to travel south from Vancouver to CTV, but our car is headed north, can we reach our destination driving at full speed? I'm afraid we'll end up driving farther and farther away from our destination. Similarly, if we cultivate in pursuit of birth and death on the causal ground, we will never realize Buddhahood that is neither produced nor destroyed. Therefore, our mind should abide in the cause of neither coming into being nor ceasing to be. That's the first definitive principle. Second, complete understanding of the fundamental cause of afflictions. If we cannot identify our afflictions, how can we overcome them and realize Buddhahood? For example, when bandits invade a country and the king sends his soldiers to drive them out, the soldiers must first know where the bandits are. Since sentient beings' afflictions come from the six sense faculties, the second definitive principle instructs us to untie the knot from the source in order to break free from the fetters and attain perfect enlightenment. The Buddha said, "Well done, Ananda. You want to understand the ignorance that you're born with. The source of the knot, which causes you to be bound to the cycle of death and rebirth, is your six faculties of perception. Nothing more. Also, since you wish to understand the supreme enlightenment, you should understand that it is through those same six faculties that you can quickly gain bliss, liberation, and stillness, wondrous and everlasting. Therefore, cultivation should start from six sense faculties." The Buddha then produced a rope and tied 6 knots in a row. He asked Ananda, "Before I started tying these knots, was this a rope one or was it 6? Answer, neither 1 nor 6. Why? This is analogous to storing empty air in a round, square, and triangle container to produce round, square, and triangle spaces, respectively. If we remove these containers, the occupied space will return to its original form. Do you still consider it as one space or 3 spaces? Space is space, just like the rope is neither 1 nor 6. You would consider everything as just as is. Now, if we were to return the rope to its original form, what would we do? These 6 knots are tied on the same rope. Can we untie all of them simultaneously? No. Since the knots were tied in sequence from the first to the sixth, we should start untying from the last knot and then work backwards until we reach the first. As we know, our inherent Buddha nature is analogous to the rope. For no reason, we suddenly give rise to ignorance, which leads to the formation of the eight consciousnesses. Next, we keep engaging in wild thoughts until we have emotional love and hatred, which then leads to formation of the six sense faculties through which we interact with each other. That's how we come about. Now that we wish to cultivate and gain liberation, we should work backwards. When we change our clothes, we start by removing the outermost layer, which is form. We then work on the rest of the five skandhas: sense perception, cognition, mental formations, and finally, consciousness. As for the six sense faculties, we can start from either one of the organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, etc. As long as we can bring one sense faculty back to the source, all six sense faculties will attain liberation together. The sutra states, originally a pure and single understanding they divide, and once divided, each of them makes contact with its objects. But then, if one of them is redirected inward, all six as a result will cease to function separately. This is like a shadow puppet show where all kinds of characters appear before the screen according to the storyline, but they are all controlled by one puppet master who tugs and pulls at their strings. If the puppeteer's hands stop, then all these make-believe characters will freeze in midair, and everything will return to stillness. The same can be said of the six sense faculties. They create all kinds of illusion, but as long as they do not run after external conditions, they will remain pure. The key words are do not run after. I'll repeat myself to drive this important message home. When the six sense faculties interact with the six objects, they do not run after beautiful forms or tasty flavor. The mind will remain pure and unaffected. So, the six sense faculties are merely agents of the bandits. We should think of ways to transform them into good citizens instead of abandoning or killing them. 25 sages in the Dharma assembly shared their own experience, culminating in 25 practices involving the six sense faculties, six sense objects, six consciousnesses, and seven primary elements. These 25 practices are equally effective and can potentially lead anyone to enlightenment. Nevertheless, Bodhisattva Manjushri helped us, sentient beings in the Dharma ending age, identify the easiest way to awakening, which is Bodhisattva Guan Yin's mastery of the hearing faculty. He said in verse, the one who came to be a Buddha in the Saha world in order to transmit to us the true essential teaching meant for this place, I say that purity is found through hearing. All those who wish to gain Samadhi's mastery will surely find that hearing is the way to enter. We will dedicate an entire class to mastery of the hearing faculty, so stay tuned for that. Next, I'd like to share a story about Wang Anshi, who lived during the Song dynasty. Anshi had a daughter who missed her parents very much after she got married. She wrote home saying, I gaze longingly at 1,000 miles of rivers and mountains ahead, and look vacantly at the yellow flowers with tears in my eyes as before. She said, I'm far away from home and I missed it so much that I'm always in tears. When Anshi received the letter, he sent his daughter a poem in reply to work together with a book that he had authored, titled Revised Explanation of the Shurangama. The poem read, by the candlelight that illuminates the windows, go study the Shurangama and don't miss home. You'll understand that affinities are merely illusory dreams. Nothing matters in this world but the wonderful lotus. In his later years, Wang Anshi focused his study on the Shurangama Sutra and had a deep understanding of life and the universe in general, further attesting to the statement, the Shurangama Sutra develops one's wisdom. He wrote in his poem that affinities are merely illusory dreams, implying that the relationship between father and daughter, husband and wife, and so forth are nothing but an illusion, not real, and should not be missed or cried over. The last line, "Nothing matters in this world but the wonderful lotus," was inspired by a verse in Volume 5 of the Shurangama Sutra. When your own mind, you grasp at your own mind. With your own mind, you grasp at your own mind. What is not illusory turns into illusion. If you don't grasp, there is no non-illusion. How can illusory dharmas be established? This is called the wonderful lotus flower. I'll leave you this verse to ponder upon. Now that I've finished explaining the sutra's primary practice, I'm going to talk about subsidiary practices. As practitioners of the Dharma ending age, our greatest fear is inability to recognize deviant spiritual teachers and their misleading teachings. Unfortunately, during the Dharma ending age, heretic groups forging the Buddha's teachings abound like grains of sand in the Ganges. Luckily, Venerable Ananda asking the Buddha this question on our behalf. How do we avoid falling under the influence of demons? The Buddha answered, first of all, take guarding your mind as the precepts. Lay the foundation with the four fundamental precepts against sexual misconduct, killing, stealing, and lying. People who are unable to fully observe precepts or uphold them immaculately are impeded by their past habits and should recite the Shurangama Sutra to help them. Venerable Master said, during the Dharma ending age, celestial demons, heretics, goblins, ghosts, mountain spirits, and water spirits all fear the Shurangama mantra the most, as it can break the deviant and reveal the truth. We recite this mantra 3 times during the daily morning ceremony in the monastery. As your daily practice, you may also recite it 1 to 3 times according to your capacity. At last, but not least, establish a site of awakening, or the Shurangama Bodhimanda. First, collect the excrements of the straw white ox that lived in the snow mountains. Master Yoshi of the Tang Dynasty said, during the event where the dung of such ox is not available, you may replace it with pure yellow loam/earth. Next, mix it with 10 kinds of incense and smear the paste mixture on an octagonal-shaped platform. Then place a lotus and a bowl in the center, just as illustrated in the picture on the slide. The Sutra text gives detailed instructions on how to conduct a 3-week Shurangama practice at the site. During the first week, bow with utmost sincerity on the Buddhas and recite the Shurangama mantra continuously. During the second week, concentrate on making bodhisattva's vows. During the third week, focus the mind on the Buddhas in thought after thought. In the span of 21 days, the practice progresses from tangible and ceremonial ritual to internally making Bodhi resolve and finally attaining the state of one mind. By following these primary and subsidiary practices, also known as the Bodhisattva's mirrored practices, one will attain various fruitions. The sutra lists 3 gradual phases: elimination of the 5 pungent plants in one's diets; second, strict observance of the precepts to purity; third, detachment of the 6 sense faculties from the 6 sense objects, also known as the practice of guarding the sense faculties and purifying the 6 faculties. When we base our cultivation on pure conditions, stillness and contemplation work hard hand in hand to achieve dhyana, and we arrive at the ground of arid wisdom, 10 faith, 10 abodes, 10 practices, 10 dedications, 4 additional practices, 10 grounds, equal enlightenment, all the way until the stage of wonderful enlightenment, culminating in the great samadhi of the foremost Shurangama. In short, all Buddhas, Tathagatas, realize Bodhi awakening through pure conditions. Sentient beings, on the other hand, let defiled conditions lead their sixth sense faculties astray, so they are still trapped in samsara and continue to take birth in 12 ways: womb, egg, moisture, metamorphosis, and so forth. So now let me ask you a question. At that time, Venerable Ananda had a question for the Buddha. Since the Buddha's body is true and real, how can there also be hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, and other paths of rebirth? First is they have always been around. Second is they come from sentient beings' deluded habits. Consider hells as an example, which have always been around, just like the prison in Hualien, Taiwan. Are convicted offenders sent there, or are they created from our past habits? And who creates these hells? What do you think the answer is? All right, wow, everyone is so smart. Let's take a look. So the answer is, just as we have prisons in the human world, there are also prisons in the hells. However, while our human prisons are built by the government to house criminals, prisons in the hells are not ready-made waiting for someone to commit an offense and be sent there. These prisons only exist by name, but not by form. They come into being only when offenders are sent there to undergo retributions, take shape according to the offenses that are committed, meaning that hells are created from our own karma. To be more specific, the 6 destinies are created from karma, so they come from sentient beings' deluded habits. The Buddha said, the fundamental nature of all beings is truly pure, Ananda. But because of their wrong views, they develop deluded habit patterns. Wrong views and deluded habits give rise to deluded emotions, even the false of the ultimate truth, which cause our body to secrete fluids of emotional love and bring about our fall. The Buddha used the words wrong and deluded to describe it. Being laden with deluded emotions, habitual greed, hatred, and delusion will fall into the realms of hells, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, devas, gods, and asuras. The purpose of cultivation is to correct our ways and avoid samsara in the 7 destinies. By overcoming greed, hatred, and delusion, we can then uphold pure precepts and lead a sensible and wise life. A practitioner's biggest fear is falling under the influence of demons. We are terrified by the term straying off course and joining their demons' retinues. However, despite all the fears, demons are actually not interested in cultivators who have no true attainment in their practice. Since we take greed, hatred, and delusion as our staple food, we are unaware of the demon's daily control over us. It is only when we finally decide to embark on a life of wisdom that we can unnerve the demons. After the Buddha answered all Ananda's questions, the Dharma assembly was supposed to end, but the Buddha turned back again and said with great concern, if practitioners who investigate dhyana cannot recognize the demonic state when they arise, then they will mistake the wrong as right and the false as true. These states may arise from demonic skandhas within or celestial demons, ghosts, spirits, and goblins without. Under these demonic influences, they mistakenly claim that they have attained the fruition of a sage, or they might mistake the demons as sages and put themselves in dangers. The sutra text states, if you cannot recognize a demonic state when it appears, it is because you have not properly purified your mind. You will then be engulfed by deviant views. From this passage, we know that the key is to recognize these demonic states. We should practice with caution when we are faced with adverse challenges. However, the opposite is true. We should be even more wary of favorable states in our cultivation, such as seeing the Buddha's light, smelling sweet fragrance, mistaking those as a sign of great accomplishment, and feeling extremely proud of ourselves. That's the most dangerous state of mind. The demons are waiting to ambush us right around the corner. The Buddha said, if you aspire to attain Bodhi in your cultivation, you should first overcome the 3 delusions. If you cannot completely break through these 3 delusions, whatever spiritual powers you attain is nothing but conditioned achievements of the mundane. Without overcoming your habits, you will fall into the demonic realms. Demons advocate the three confused states of greed, hatred, and delusion. Therefore, if you can overcome greed, hatred, and delusion, self-conceit, then demons will leave you alone. As the saying goes, when we do not give rise to internal demons, external demons cease to be. So let's review. The objective of the Shurangama Sutra can be summarized by 3 words: reliance, transformation, and shattering. First, reliance, rely upon true suchness. Second, transformation, turning the grasping mind around. Instead of pursuing external conditions, direct the mind inward to cultivate right practices such as mastering the hearing faculty and strengthening the practice by upholding the precepts and reciting the mantra. Third, shattering, overcome obstacles arising from afflictions and past karma, as well as obstruction caused by spirits and ghosts. The sutra advocates reciting Shurangama's mantra as a mean to eradicate divine and spiritual obstacles, but the emphasis is really on overcoming internal obstacles. Master Empty Cloud said, where can we find wise spiritual teachers in Dharma in the age? Instead of searching for one, we'd better off thoroughly mastering the Shurangama Sutra so we can confidently protect ourselves and be our own savior, putting an end to deviant conditions and developing the Buddha's knowledge and views in our every thought and action. This sutra is indeed a guidebook that systematically leads cultivators from making initial resolve all the way to realizing Buddhahood. Lastly, I'd like to share a passage that Venerable Master Hua emphasized. If they reject production and extinction and uphold true permanence, an everlasting light will appear, and with that, the sense organs, defiling objects, and consciousnesses will disappear. The appearance of thought becomes defilement, the motions of consciousness become filth. If you stay far away from these two, then your Dharma eye will accordingly become pure and bright. How could you fail to accomplish and surpass knowledge and enlightenment? The sutra said we should end discriminating thoughts of impermanent comings and goings and embrace the true and everlasting essence, which neither comes nor goes. If we cultivate the path with a sincere mind, the radiance from our self-nature will eventually shine through. The 6 sense faculties, 6 sense objects, 6 consciousness, and other mental delusions will disappear with the passing of time. Having overcome coarse sense faculties and coarse defilements, we will then be able to rid ourselves of fine and obstinate mental defilements, as well as conscious sentiments that give rise to these thoughts. Only when the grime is rubbed off can radiance emerge, and when defilements are gone, perfect awakening is attained. Venerable Master said, do not be attached to emotions, love, false thoughts, and the discriminating mind. All of you should have this passage engraved in your heart. Therefore, I strongly suggest everyone to memorize it. So, for homework, the assignment is, among the 25 practices of enlightenment, which is Bodhisattva Great Strength's practice that brings about his awakening? Explain how you may apply this method on the Dharma door of reciting the Buddha's name. So you can roughly write around 200 words for it. So I want you also to think about, how do you use it, apply this method when you So lastly, I just want to remind and let everyone know that next week we will be speaking about 7 quests for the true mind. This is in the first volume. Now it is a bit challenging, and the Dharma Master has planned a discussion as well. So if you all have time, please take some time to preview the 7 quests for the true mind, so it'll be easier to understand next week. So that's the end of the class this week. Let's dedicate.
愿以此功德，庄严佛净土，上报四重恩，下济三途苦。若有见闻者，悉发菩提心，尽此一报身。同生极乐国，并离饶和生。大家弥陀佛。